Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Hello, welcome to Parent Entrepreneur Power. We got Mary Catherine Johnson, my amazing co-host as always, and we have Joel Lewis today as the guest. And I think we are both very excited, so welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on as well, and excited to be the first guest on your podcast.
Yes. You were the very first.
Hey, we go to our buds, right? We go to our friends, we go to the people we know, and you are definitely one of my oldest online friends.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited.
So, because I'm sure not everyone listening is quite as good of friends with you as Mary is, tell us, who the heck are you, and what do you do?
All right. Well, really quickly, a little backstory, and actually, I think this is going to be very relevant to the conversation that we're going to have today. I'll start back to my corporate days. I worked at Intel Corporation for 15 years. It was actually my first real job right out of school, and did that for 15 years, climbing the corporate ladder, became a senior manager, loved it. Everything was awesome. And then in 2008, which was kind of 7 years into my 15 years of Intel, my first daughter was born, Anya, and she's now 12. And every 7 years at Intel, you were allowed to get a 2-month paid sabbatical, which was awesome. So I timed it. My wife and I timed it where I would take the sabbatical. She would take maternity leave. I would work for a couple of 6 weeks or so. And then when her maternity leave was almost over, we would kind of have an overlap for about 2 weeks. And then I would take my sabbatical, and then I would be kind of the primary caregiver for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. It like worked out really great. I loved everything about it. I loved the experience. I loved being present for my daughter, my first child, the type of parent I wanted to be, being able to still provide for my family at the same time because it was a paid sabbatical. So from that experience, I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is the type of parent I want to be. This is the type of time I want to be able to spend with my kids. And that started my entrepreneur journey, trying to discover what I wanted to do, how can I bring value to the world, and all that kind of stuff. So I eventually started my business. Now, remember I said she was born 7 years into Intel, my stint at Intel. I was with Intel for 15 years. So it took a number of years from that catalyst of my daughter being born and opening my eyes to like, okay, I need to do something different. It took 7 years to figure it out, to finally launch my business, get it going. And now I have a digital marketing agency specifically focused on building sales and marketing funnels.
Okay.
And I have 3 children now who are 12, 10, and 8, and they are all girls. We're getting a dog.
I'm sorry. Being the eldest of 3 girls, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Being the oldest of 2 boys, I also say that I'm sorry.
The dog has to give you some male bonding of some kind. Yes.
We're getting the dog in 2 weeks, heading down to Pennsylvania. Marley, Bernese Mountain Dog. I'm super excited.
Well, hopefully you're going to enjoy that dog when it's full of like braids and stuff. So your kids are still pretty young.
Yes.
So I can't imagine that they are very heavily involved in your business, but I'm kind of curious to ask, do they mesh in at all? I mean, I know you probably wouldn't give an 8-year-old some like business task to do, but are they at all a part of anything that you do?
So it's a great question. They've actually been part of the journey, right? So part of, trying to give you a little bit quick synopsis of my background. part of that journey, that kind of from this 2008 to 2015, when I finally took the leap, part of that journey was me actually starting my own podcast, which was called Startup Dad Headquarters, because I was trying to figure out, okay, how do you leave a corporate job, start a business with a family without sacrificing the family? And during that time, I was working full time and doing the podcast. And there was actually, I actually have a video where all three of them, well, actually at the time, was it two of the girls, I did a little intro and the girls were in that intro. And then that's actually still posted on Facebook and the Startup Dad page. So there's been certain points in time where I'm kind of pulling them in, or they're experiencing and they're seeing the journey as it goes by. But in terms of like actually having a job and things that they do in the company, no, not yet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I just got to kind of dive into that a minute because, how can we not have them come along in the journey if we are an entrepreneur who either works from home or does this differently from a quote full-time job, right? So they have to kind of be involved. They have to be adaptable, right? Sometimes you work a lot, sometimes you don't work as much. So they understand that, you're not set in, I have to be at a certain place at a certain time every single day. So no matter what, they participate in that. But what about that adaptability? How do you see that being a skill that they might be able to develop from a work perspective?
Yeah, the great thing about, and if we think about 2020, right, and everything that kind of happened with that, is that, the fact that I've been running this business for, I don't know, 5 years or 6 years now. And I started initially from home. I was working from home. I have an office in the house. The girls get to see all that. I mean, they've been experiencing that. They've been seeing daddy in the office, talking, having calls. They understand sales calls. They understand that I'm talking to a client. They're bringing me snacks. They're bringing me food, right? So, and then in 2020, when COVID happened, and by then I had an office that was outside of the home because it was just easier to kind of run a business and kind of separate the two things, family from work. When 2020 happened, they were able to see, they already see the dynamics between mom and dad, right? Like my wife is a NICU nurse. She works 2 days a week. So she leaves the house and she goes to work, and then the rest of the week she's home. And then for me, they see the flexibility that I have, right? Where I could adjust my schedule, where sometimes I work outside the home, sometimes I do work from home. And in 2020, when everything got shut down and my office that I had outside of home also got shut down, I was able to quickly pull everything into the house. So I think and that's one thing that we as a family have talked about during that time frame in terms of impact, right? And we looked at our situation where my wife only works 2 days a week. Granted, she was going to one of the high risk areas as a nurse, but between that, the two of our girls being homeschooled, me having my own business, the impact was very low for us because we were able to just bring everything in. So I think through conversations and things that we've talked about, I think they understand and they're seeing that experience and understand the power of kind of having your own business.
Right. They're seeing how, as like an entrepreneur and a parent, you're able to, like, when something like COVID happens, like it's not some huge diversion from what your life could and has usually looked like. So they're seeing that. And do you see them like kind of feel that and understand it?
Yeah, definitely do the conversation. And also I should point out is I have a team. Right. So part of that flexibility is not just owning my own business, because I could also be, my business could turn into a job, right? Where it could be as taxing and as stressful and everything like that. But by having a team, they're also able to, and they know that I have a team. They know that, the different team members that I have, and they're able to know that I could delegate things out to the team. Right. So we just went on a vacation to North Carolina, and we were gone for 9 days, and I did zero work. Right. So again, another thing, excuse me, another experience that they're seeing that, okay, daddy's able to have a team and he has employees and all this kind of stuff. And the business continues to run.
Right. Okay. And do you like? Well, you know what? Let me give Mary an opportunity to jump in and say something. I feel like I keep jumping right in, so you go
No,
for it.
not at all. Not at all. I'm going to go, I always go different directions. I love diving into more of the, especially with kids. I mean, as parents, we know, the number one thing you can always count on with kids is that there's another phase coming. And whatever phase you're in is not going to stay that for very long.
Right.
There's always another phase coming and then another phase, and it just, that's part of growing. And I liken that so much to entrepreneurship. Especially Joelle and I mean, we've known each other. I knew you when you even right before you quit Intel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And started your podcast and all that, and the phases you've gone through in your business from that podcast, they just mirror how kids grow. So I'm wondering how, and again, going back to them seeing entrepreneurship, do you see them leaning toward doing anything like that? Your 12-year-old, have you talked about what she might do and how she sees her world and her opportunities?
Yeah, my 12-year-old definitely. So the other two, they want to become like one wants to be a doctor, the other one wants to be a doctor scientist. The verdict is still out to see what's going to happen. But they're very much into the human body. They just love all that kind of stuff. We went to the Mutter Museum in Pennsylvania. It's either Mutter or Mutter Museum in Pennsylvania, where it's like the body.
I've heard of
and
that.
you can see like all the different stuff. My 12-year-old didn't want to have anything to do with that. So we actually went to the movies, her and I. But she's gone from, so all three of the girls have already attempted entrepreneurial things. Yes, activities, and we could get into that. But my 12-year-old wants to, initially she was thinking about opening up like a beauty. She wants to get into beauty and fashion, right? And now she wants to do interior design. So it's bouncing around. But the thing is, like, at 12 years old, I wasn't thinking about anything like that, right? But we've already had enough multiple conversations with her wanting to have her own business, and she wants to travel the world. The business she wants to do, she wants to travel the world and be able to do it wherever she goes.
Right. And so it sounds like it's less about, for her at this stage, it's less about like what she wants to do, because it's obviously bouncing around a lot. It's more about the fact that she wants to do something, and she has what she wants her life to look like. And it's just kind of the last step of, okay, well, what exactly thing do you want to do to make that life you want a reality? And it's 12 years old, you're not going to really know that, and you're not going to need to know that, because you're not going to be able to make your life, make that reality for yourself until you're like 18 at the earliest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's what, as Evan and I have talked about this, because, you know, our story, and, me having my business and Evan being able to learn some skills through that business to be able to grow his own business.
Right.
It's I love the way Evan looks at it. He's like he just said, it's more like, what kind of life do you want to create for yourself, and what is the best vehicle? And entrepreneurship is really the best vehicle to create that life for yourself.
Yeah, I hate the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I hate it so much.
Well, part of my story as well, which I think Evan may or may not know, is that, our girls have medical conditions. So the reason why I grew a team so quickly, one of the reasons why I grew a team so quickly is, one, obviously I didn't want to replace one job for another. Two, because of the medical conditions that my girls have, I knew at any point in time, because right after quitting Intel, it was like every 6 weeks or so, we were back in the hospital. And that obviously is very difficult to run a business when you're in the hospital. So I knew I needed to have a team. And the reason why I bring this up is that, for me, the girls still have the medical conditions, right? They still have it. They still suffer with it. They still struggle with it. They have their ups and downs. And for me, the ideal situation would be for them to have their, if this is something that we can't solve long-term, right, where they're completely cured and they're 100% fine, the ideal situation would be for them to have their own business, right, where they could have their own schedule and control their time and everything like that, so that when they have a flare up, it's okay because they could manage that with their business.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. That has been my experience as well, as someone who has tobacco conditions that are fine for a while, but they may flare up. It may flare up occasionally, and if it does not really matter very much because like I don't have to scramble to get someone to cover a shift or to take off work. I can just not work, and nothing crazy happens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of this. And I think we're not necessarily looking to make everyone an entrepreneur because that's just not possible.
Yeah.
But
then not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur.
That's right. Yeah.
Like if your two daughters who want to become doctors and doctor scientists, well, those aren't entrepreneurial positions, they're jobs, but they're both just as amazing.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
There's going to be working a little bit more than your eldest daughter.
Yeah, but they know that there are opportunities that they can basically, that's really my number one goal. You can create the life you want. It doesn't matter where, when, how, it doesn't, you have opportunities that you can create. You're no longer dependent on going to college to learn a specific skill or to, do a certain thing and then doing that job for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's why I was so excited and excited and honored to be one of your guests on this podcast because, as an entrepreneur, someone who worked corporate, someone who didn't even know what entrepreneurship was, while I was working corporate, right? I didn't even know you could start your own business and make money. I think what you just pointed out is, and the reason why I was excited to come on the show is, I think it's important whether the child is going to become an entrepreneur or not, is having them understand that there's other ways to generate income, right? And maybe you're not a full-time entrepreneur. Maybe you are the scientist doctor, right? But you also have this other thing, this kind of thing you enjoy. It's a hobby, but you make money off of it, right? And it's this little side gig. So there's that notion, those things wasn't something that I was taught, wasn't something that I was told about, right? How to make money in different ways, just like with the stock market, right? You could potentially, if you know what you're doing, if you do some studying, you could do some safe investments and make money, right? There's other ways of doing it where that you're not dependent on this one source of income. And if that source of income 2020, right? We just went through a pandemic. If that one source of income goes away, what are you left, what are you left doing, right? So at least knowing that, okay, that income goes away, it's all right. I could start a business. I could do this. I could do that. I know someone's willing to pay me for this service or whatever skills and talents that the individual has.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say to go a little bit deeper into that because I think what we're talking about here isn't necessarily just that you can create the skills to be able to build a business. It really takes it takes a different mindset to be more self-sufficient in that respect. To realize that, I love being a doctor scientist and this is amazing, but if for some reason the world turns upside down and I no longer have that job, I have not just the skills, but I understand my knowledge level, my ability. I can do anything I need to do to make a living and even go beyond making a living. I mean, Joelle, you and I have had this conversation before. Go beyond making a living. We can influence the world. We can help change people's lives through the things that we do. And it goes much deeper than just making a living.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of funny you brought that up because I was going to go in a similar direction we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship as it relates to lifestyle and career. But there's one huge part, which is arguably the biggest part of entrepreneurship is the mindset, because having a job is amazing, right? Being a doctor scientist is incredible. It takes a lot of hard work and it's very fulfilling, I'm sure, for those people who are doctor scientists. But the one thing that sets entrepreneurship apart, at least for me, is that because you are your own boss, you have to show up for yourself. And there's a lot of mindset work that you have to do to be a successful entrepreneur. Whereas with many jobs, you just show up and you do what your boss tells you to do, and then you go home, and then that's okay, right? You may not rise as high as someone who has their mindset together, but you could do it. And so, but mindset is pretty much the core part of entrepreneurship. How have you had any conversations with your daughters about mindset? Have you like demonstrated that mindset? Like, how do you see them responding to the kind of entrepreneurial mindset that I'm sure you guys know that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I've done with them, because of the homeschooling, part of that homeschooling in the mornings, I do a little bit with the girls, and the biggest thing that I would say I've done with them with regards to that so far is meditation. We've spent a lot of time. I've taught them, and it's it's the four of us. My wife is still upstairs sleeping when this is happening, and I teaching them how to meditate, how to be still, and to just observe what they're feeling, what they're thinking, or how to silence the mind. Actually, I didn't. Again, we started this 2 years ago. So at first, they were 6 years old, 8 years old, and 10, right? So it was like, I don't know if this is going to work because they're so young. But my girls are awesome. Probably every parent says that, right? But they actually did it. It took a little bit of time. But there was also gym and physical activity and stuff like that we've done through that, and then pushing them through to discover their limits and everything like that. But man, yeah, when they dial into that meditation, whether it's complete silence or using Headspace or I forget the other one that we use, they absolutely love it. So that would be. I would say that would be the one thing that I could say so far that I've done with them. I haven't done reading material or motivational stuff as of yet.
And do they actually sit still for the meditation?
Yeah, I mean, my middle daughter is the one that she has a lot of energy, but yeah, she'll sit still. But she's the one that struggled the most in the beginning. My oldest and my youngest one is just like, it's like she's one of those kids like, you show her something and she gets it, boom, right away, right? She just like it dials in immediately, and so those two got it right away. My middle daughter took a little bit of time, but yeah, she also dialed into it as well.
And do you see them like benefiting from the meditation, or is it kind of like nap time? Like, what do you see kind of coming out of it?
No, actually, it's been very powerful in sense of like when we are having a tough situation, or for example, my middle daughter, just 2 weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction, and this was the first time we had to use an EpiPen, and I was able to guide her through, right? Because we've already been down, we've already done meditation. I said, do your breathing and try to relax and stuff like that to help. I mean, it was a lot of fear because it was the first time being, it was the first time I actually ever used the EpiPen myself. But she was able to, use that meditation, those, what she learned in a positive way. So yeah, not napping, not falling asleep. From the times we've done it, I can't recall anyone ever falling asleep while we've done it. And this is early in the morning. I'm talking about 7 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really incredible that I was able to help your daughter through that experience, because I know that's with those kinds of things. I mean, that's the mindset, the negative mindset that comes about when that's happening, the fear
right,
of what's going to happen, about what's happening, and the pain and all that kind of stuff. Like that's what gets you,
Yeah.
it's the fear it generates.
It overtakes you. Yeah. And that's something, oh my gosh. So here's something I think about from my perspective. So we all have, so you and I, Joelle, not really having grown up with entrepreneurship, not really having seen it as a child, it's a new experience. And there are so many mindset hurdles we had to overcome just to be able to have the confidence and the ability to say, who's going to pay me for this? how's anybody going to think that I can provide anything related to what I'm going to charge them? All
Right.
those things, and the fears and all that. And to think that you are setting up your daughters to start ahead of that, to already have that part done. They'll have other mindset issues, right? That's life, that's being human, but
Right.
at least they're starting. I look at it as climbing a ladder, right? You can look at it that way. And we started, some of us started negative runs, right?
Right.
And the negative rung of the ladder. Some of us start, right at the beginning and a little bit higher, but they're going to start more than just a few rungs up the ladder than you did.
Right.
And to be honest, that's the best we can provide, is to allow them to start higher and easier than we did. Not take away all the obstacles. We can't do that, but to at least start higher so that they don't have to struggle, worse, more than we did. They'll struggle with other things and they'll uncover those things later. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And one of the, to tell you guys a story of some of the things that they've done from an entrepreneur standpoint. So my wife, because of the homeschooling, which is awesome, by the way, anyone listening to this, it's difficult. And obviously we're blessed that my wife only has to work 2 days a week. But if you could do it, it's amazing. So she's done already financial education with them. And one of the things, so she talked to them about debt and all this kind of stuff, loans and interest, credit cards. So they're like deathly afraid of credit cards now. And so one of the things that came out of that was that, okay, look, you got to have a savings, and you cannot spend any of your money until you have a savings of $500. Okay, so you first have to get $500. Once you get $500, then any money that comes in from birthdays, all this kind of stuff, you could then start to, spend some of that money. But you first have to have the 500. So my middle daughter and my youngest daughter last year, or it was the year before, I think it was last year, started a restaurant in the house, right? Called Linder's. Well, I say it's Linder's, but it's actually Lindor's.
I see.
It's Lindor's, right? So I always make fun of them. No, it sounds Linder's. Sounds like a cleaning service. So they created a menu of everything. Like they knew how to make these shakes that were amazing, breakfast items. So I was like, all right, cool. I mean, in one sense, I could take the approach where like, no, I'm the parent, you make me something to eat, and like it's free. Like I'm not gonna pay you, right? But in another sense, the fact that they took the opportunity to create a menu of the things that they could cook themselves, right? And again, at this point, they were 9 and 7 or 8 and 6 or whatever. They put together this amazing menu with shakes and everything. And my wife and I started to buy. They would make the things and I would order from the menu and I would pay them. They would give me my change. So there was a price for everything. They had a cash register. And my oldest daughter, actually, the restaurant was for my middle daughter. She was the owner. My youngest and my oldest were her employees. And they got to a point where we had to figure out, okay, how much are you going to pay your employees? And she was going to pay them very nicely. And I was like, no, you got to have a profit, because how are you going to buy more supplies? Because you're not going to get the supplies from me. So you got the first set of supplies from me, but now like you got to buy your eggs, you got to buy the things that you're going to use to make your meal. So my middle daughter has already saved up $500. So she has way over $500 now. And so the other things they've done is a yard sale to make money, and they've figured out what things they're going to sell and the pricing and all this kind of stuff. So they haven't done anything from the standpoint outside besides the yard sale, but no lemon stand or anything like that. But they're getting it exactly what money blocks, which is a big mindset issue for entrepreneurs, right? Being able to pay someone for their services, being able to accept money for doing something. Right. I'm hoping a lot of that is they're learning that from either watching and from the experiences of trying to do their own little businesses.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly just to allow them to overcome. So I look at it as just like anything else in life, just like the purpose that we are parents and we help our children grow. We are trying to provide a safe environment to possibly make those mistakes. Right? To fail on something, to try something and come up against one of those hurdles and work it out while they're with us
Right.
in a safe environment. So that kind of brings us to that whole idea of failure.
Right.
We talked about mindset. What about failure? How are you helping your daughters handle that term, right? It means different things to different people, but, learn from it and grow from it rather than look at it as a death sentence to their, to their ego, to their life, to their dreams, all that stuff.
Yeah, for me, the way I'm doing it is physical fitness, right? So I there's a strong correlation to me in terms of like physical pushing yourself to that limit. This is why Mary knows I go to CrossFit every morning, pretty much 5 days a week at 5:30 a.m. So that's why when COVID happened, like my life went to a spiral because it was like I don't have my CrossFit. So for me, I think through sports, through fitness, right? There's a lot to learn: teamwork, failure, winning, losing, working hard to succeed, right? So by me doing physical activities with them, doing the gym, pushing them, we do races, we do jogging. I say, come on, soldier, push yourself, and doing planks and stuff like that. I think for me, that is, I'm not necessarily talking to them specifically about failure, but I'm asking them, hey, can you go just a little bit further? Can you dig down deep and get a little bit more, and see the potential that you have? So like my youngest one, which again, that's the one I said that she dials into everything. She could plank for 6 minutes, which is crazy. She could plank way longer than I can, right? So she knows she always challenges herself and pushes herself to that next level. And from the medical standpoint, she's the one that has the most severe medical condition. Which I think, again, part of my story and part of their story of that struggle is it's tough as a parent. It's tough for them, the crying, the hospital visits, the ERs, everything like that. But we see the fact that, especially since all three of them have gone through it together, they're going to be so much stronger because of that, because they've been through so much stuff that other things in life is going to seem a lot easier. So,
right. Yeah, I can see that. That's crazy. That 6 minutes. Yeah. I definitely don't think I could hold a plank for 6 minutes. That's a lot.
Nope. I push myself for 1 minute and then I'm like, all right, collapse.
Right.
6?
Yeah.
6 minutes. I kid you not. And I keep, me, I track everything. So I have all their jogging time, their sprinting time, their planking time, air squats, how long they can hold the wall squat, everything.
My gosh.
Pull-ups, everything.
You're nuts.
Yes. Come on, I'm an engineer.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Evan. All right, Evan, dude, let's go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. He's like, yeah, right.
Go plank.
Sure. Yeah. Have fun, Mom. Bye.
Good luck. Tell me what your time is.
I'll have you running up those hills. Come on. Those California hills. Come on.
You saw my post, right? I mean, it's like, this is why I'm living in a place called The Hills.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. But it's true. Our experiences create the humans we become, right? It creates what we tolerate. It creates what we push ourselves for. And I was going to say, your youngest, if things come easy to her to that extent, it's going to be harder for her typically to push herself into things that don't come easy. Right.
Yeah.
That's
we've run across that.
Yeah. Things always came easy to me when I was in school. So why work?
Right.
Really? I mean, if I can just listen to the lecture or do one piece of homework and get a B, why would I push myself to get an A?
Yeah.
It's easy. Right. So that's difficult.
Yeah, we've definitely come across that. And, we've had those conversations. I've had those conversations with her, and I kind of show her, like, I try to correlate it to something else that came easy. and say, look, sometimes it does require that extra work and it takes a little bit longer, but eventually you'll get it. So like riding a bike, and now she does violin, right? So we've had those conversations, but that is one of my biggest concerns for her specifically, because it just connects. It just connects for her really, really quickly. Yeah.
Because I know that the more you fail, the easier it is to deal with failure as well. Like if you come at it with the right mindset.
Right.
And so, especially to someone who things come easy to, I imagine that was never me in school. I got to be honest. But for someone where stuff comes easy to, then you might not fail as often. And so, if you push yourself into a position where you're doing something that does not come as easy to you, you're probably going to fail way faster than someone who kind of fails a moderate amount on everything, right?
Right.
But it seems to me like you've put the kind of mindset into her so that if she does end up failing at something, it won't be the end of the world, as it would for most kids who are in that position, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as we begin to wind down the podcast, we like to end with a specific question. Mary, would you like to take this one? You have a knack for asking deeper questions.
I don't know if it's a knack. I think it's just people don't like me sometimes because because I'm always going to come down to this. I'm always going to get deep.
Okay, he'll still like me. You're asking it.
That's right. I can be the bad cop. You can be the good cop. I'm good with that.
Okay, cool. I am also good with that.
Of course. So, all right, Joel, let's say we're not going to obviously wish this, God forbid, whatever words you need to use to ward off evil spirits. But let's say tomorrow you died tomorrow. How are you preparing? What kind of entrepreneurial legacy would you leave for your kids to use as an example as they possibly grow into entrepreneurs themselves?
That is a fabulous question. I think the way I'll answer that question, and there's so many ways I can answer it, but I think one thing that I've talked to them, my wife, my kids, they all know, and we're all on the same page when it comes to this. And I know, Mary, we've talked about this a couple of times, and it actually it goes in line with what you were talking about earlier in terms of growing, right? You have these different phases. I call it, actually, the person who taught me it calls it seasons, different seasons. And as an entrepreneur, I think they've seen Daddy going through different seasons, but we've also had conversations. So, for example, the last 6 months ago or so, I went heavy into marketing, working on marketing efforts, which means, what that means specifically, I was coming home late very often, where normally I punch out at 5:30. So right after this podcast, I'll be punching out and going home. But I had a conversation with my wife and the 3 girls and said, hey, you won't be seeing me as much over the next couple of weeks or months, because I'm working on, in the beginning of the year, we all defined some goals that we wanted to accomplish this year. Okay. And I said, I'm working on, you guys remember the goal that Daddy had defined, and I'm working on that goal. And because of that, here's the things that I need to do. And I'm going to need to work later. So sometimes I may be coming home and, just a kiss goodnight and you guys going to bed. Well, that ended up expanding. That ended up going longer than I thought of. So I had to have the conversation again and say, hey, girls, Daddy's in this season where I'm still working on the marketing. Don't worry, I didn't forget about you guys. Don't worry, I know you guys want to hang out with me and play with me and play Roblox, the popular game that all the kids want to play now. But I'm still working on this thing because I'm trying to get to this goal, right? And I think, so 2 things out of that. Number one is, my hope is that they're seeing that there's times that you have to define, you have a goal and there's things that you need to do, and you have to define how is that going to work, right? You have these seasons that you go through in life and in business. And number two is defining a goal and work hard, play hard, right? I'm going to work my tail off to make this happen. I'm going to sacrifice something in the middle in that time being, but it's for a greater good. If it all works out, I'll be able to, the thing that I was sacrificing, I'll be able to enjoy again, but also I've accomplished this goal that's taken either me personally to another level, the business to another level, so far and so on. So that's hopefully the legacy that I'm leaving behind for them, or one of the legacies I'm leaving behind for them.
That's pretty amazing.
Wow. And it's all mindset. It's all you create the life, you work hard for the life, you enjoy the life, you sacrifice when you need to, you lay back and relax when you need to. This is life. This is what it's about.
Absolutely. And I really hope that, again, by seeing the dynamics between mom and dad, she works 2 days a week, she's home most of the time. And then also the ability, we've had that conversation too, like mom's ability to stay home is also because daddy has a business and all this kind of stuff. So again, they're still young, and one of the reasons why I'm super excited about the work that you guys are doing is that I could start to learn, to hear about entrepreneurs who have older kids and what are the things that they've done over the years to kind of, teach them more, get them into doing something. For me, I'm hoping the stuff that I've been doing is setting that pathway, or at least showing them the possibility of doing something different.
I'd say so.
Yes, absolutely. And you're right, Joel. That's exactly what Evan and I are doing, because that's in our story. That's exactly what the way that's the way I structured my business, to allow for Evan to learn some skills to be able to then build his own business and make it a little easier to facilitate that. If my business was able to facilitate that. The same with Riley, his younger brother. My business was able to facilitate the skills that he was learning with his passion, and be able to then provide that passion as a skill to build his own business. And we're definitely taking people, perfect segue into that. If you're interested in that, listening to this, go to parententrepreneur.power.com, and we have information there where you can sign up for a wait list and join us on this journey, because the more parents we have joining us on this journey and structuring their business to foster these new ideas in their children, the more we can actually change the world for a better place for all of us. So, Joel, oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing. I can't believe I learned even more new things about you. I thought that I pretty much knew most everything, talking to you on a regular basis as I do, but wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes,
thank you for having me on.
And for those who think Joel is pretty interesting and want to learn more about you and about what you do, where can they find you?
integratorandco.com. So that's the website for my business. If they want to just follow me personally, it's I am on Instagram. It's I am Joel Lewis. So I am Joel Lewis.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Joel, for coming on the show. Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parententrepreneurpower.com.